Hey, WCA, Mike Amori here for the 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock video, week 3. We're going to take a look at a game played between Mari and Danny RC, or Daniel RC. We got a couple of Daniels in the class, only one Mari. Mari played a really good game. Daniel was very, very aggressive, and looks like he kind of pushed a little too hard. But as the game went on, you're going to see that Mari had chances to do some trading, and that's really going to be the key to this video, is when to trade off pieces when you have material, when you have an advantage in count or piece count, like if you're up a knight or a couple of pawns. A very useful trick is the concept of trading down. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So the game starts as a 4 knights position, and I think Mari forgot that after bishop to c4 that Daniel can play the center fork trick, which he does. And you know, we've gone over this so many times in the class that I can't really go through all the lines again. Just remember that when you have this position, which is a 4 knights, if you put a bishop on this square, the opponent has the option of taking that center pawn. Now, it doesn't win the game. Mari accepted. The only deal with allowing the center fork trick is you're going to lose a piece back, and the other side will collect, and you'll get the pawn back. It's just a swap, but at the end of it, black is going to have a pawn in the middle of the board. So most players will retreat the bishop here, trying to keep it. Mari decided to trade the bishop instead, and allowing queen to d5, and the material here is equal, but black has a little bit of a pull or a little annoyance, I guess, for white because of this center pawn. This pawn is annoying. It's controlling some key squares, and when Mari wants to get this bishop out, she's going to have to move one of these pawns, and if it's the center pawn, as you'll see in the game, it's only going to move to d3, not to d4. Okay, so knight to c3, she moves the knight away, attacking the queen, and then queen to e6. There were other moves here. I guess the only deal with e6 is that it's blocking the light squared bishop, and I guess if you put it on d6, it's blocking the dark squared bishop. But in both cases, she's going to be able to swing over and attack the king. So it's a reasonable move either way. Castle, the queen sidesteps, and here Mari chased the queen. But I would recommend to her here that with Daniel's king still in the middle of the board, that she might try the move d4, which opens up the game and also tries to equalize the space. You can see that if these lines open, there could be some pressure on this line. If the queen has to deal with this pin here, you can actually take the knight on e5, which looks like a big trade here, because of if you take the queen, then we just take your queen, and a whole bunch of trading's going on, but white has gotten rid of black's space advantage, right? Is there another option after knight takes e5? Some of you might say, well, what happens after knight takes knight? Aren't you going to lose your queen? You're like messing up this trade. You're not. Can you find the move that white should play here? You're down a piece. How do you get your piece back? Oh, by the way, your queen's being attacked. Yeah, pretty cool. Put your queen on e1, and you're going to pick up that knight. Okay, there's a pretty cool idea. So maybe in this position, after queen g6, Mari could have tried d4, which, again, we're playing because we're trying to take advantage of the black king being stuck in the middle. What she did is she chased after the queen by putting the knight on h4, and the queen should probably come to, maybe f6. He put the queen on h6, which you have to be very careful about. I do see that the knight is being attacked, so there's a lot of possibilities here. I could protect the knight, but now Daniel with black has to be careful that this queen is lined up with the bishop. So it doesn't look that dangerous for him, but just as a warning to all of you, be careful putting your queen on the same line as an enemy piece. But Mari just decides to put the knight back. And once Daniel sees that the knight is, not going to be captured, he decides to go back where he was. So I'm curious. I wonder if Mari went to knight h4 again, if the game would end in a draw. But it doesn't, because she decides to play d3. So they just played a couple of moves back and forth. All right. Now, you do remember me telling you that with the pawn on d3, there's less space. You see the black pawn that's out 2 boxes, and the white pawn is only out 1 box. So black has a little bit more space. Bishop h3. Okay. So now checkmate in 1 move, and guess what move Mari plays to stop it? There it is again, knight h4, which attacks the queen and protects the bishop. And here, Daniel blunders. He most likely, in this position, should play a move like queen to g4, which offers a queen trade and also attacks the knight. And if the queens happen to come off the board, you'll have this position, and you'll see that black still enjoys having a pawn 2 boxes out. And, the game will continue, and it looks like black is, I don't know, maybe slightly better because of that space, but it's still a pretty equal game. But after knight h4, Daniel plays queen e6, which is a blunder because Mari wins the bishop. Now, in Daniel's defense, his idea was, look, I'll get a pawn for that piece, and I'll attack her knight. The problem is there's nobody here to help the queen right now. So what Mari did, I like the way she played from here. She played knight to g2. It's like acting like a pawn, protecting the king. And as long as nothing else can attack that knight, it looks like she can get away with this. But Daniel keeps coming, knight to d4. And here Mari played the move f3, which is pretty nice. It's covering up the f3 square. You see how the rook and queen both protect that pawn. The question is, could she have played f4, being a little bit more aggressive? The idea being, again, if we can get this pawn to take, or if we can take, we might be able to open up some lines to the black king while he's still stuck in the middle. If you play a move like f3 or f4, you have to watch out for moves like bishop c5, because you've weakened the diagonal to your king. But I think, if you just cover up with a move like bishop e3, you're good to go. I think you're covering all the squares, you're getting your pieces out. You would love to trade down. Remember what I said at the beginning of the video. Trading down is the process of trading piece for piece when you're up material. The concept is, if I can keep trading with you, at the end of the trades, I'm going to have an extra player to take me into the end game, and I should have an easy win. Be careful here. Be careful. You see how this bishop and knight are on the same diagonal as the white king? If you played some random move like a3, mate in 2. Mate in 2. Let's see if you can solve it. I see at least 2 solutions here. I don't even know if there's more. The straight one, the one that's like the easiest to play, is knight f3, double check. And anytime the king, this guy down here, is hit with a double check, he has to move. He goes to h1, and then we have queen h2, checkmate, right? There's another one. Can you find it? I like this one the best. Knight e2, double check. Double check. King has to move. And when he comes here, where's the mate in 1? You guys see that? Yeah, this is a cool move. I like this. Knight g3, mate. The pawn is pinned. King can't come out to the left because of that bishop. Okay? Watch the tactics. They're everywhere in chess. It's incredible. So, if you played some random move like a3, you're going to lose the game. But let me show you what Mari did. She played pawn f3, which is more defensive because it doesn't attack the black e-pawn. And Daniel continues just like what I just showed you a second ago. He played a really good move. He brings his bishop into the game. And I give him credit because he's down material, but he keeps pushing forward. And I like that. Bishop e3. Mari played a really good move. Covering up. Daniel castles the king. Mari played knight to e4, attacking the bishop. The bishop goes to b6. So she's handling this really, really well. Pawn to c3, and Daniel plays knight f5. And it's here in this position where Mari should continue the concept of trading down by just simply taking the bishop on b6. Get rid of that piece because it's pointing right at your king. Pawn takes back, and now you have this really nice move, knight to g5, which is a double attack. It attacks the queen, and it also attacks the pawn here on f7, which would be a really, really nice fork. I guess the queen could try to come to this square to protect, and then you can continue your idea with a move like f4, again trying to trade the queens. That might be a pretty good idea to play. There's another cool move here. So after knight g5, if Daniel wanted to, he could bail out with the move queen takes g2. Yeah, I know that looks ridiculous. It's still losing. It's just a cool little tactical move. So you see why he's giving away the queen for a knight after king takes? You have this move knight e3 check. You'll get the queen back, but the problem is what you're doing is you're really just trading down, but at least that gives you an opportunity to protect your pawn on f7. All right, really cool stuff. This is a really, really nice game. So after knight f5, again, I highly recommend that Mari get rid of this bishop. She played the move queen e1, which allows Daniel to take a pawn with a rook. And I think Mari hung the pawn, but it's really bad for Daniel to take it if Mari continued with the same idea. Take the bishop. Once you get rid of the bishop and the pawn takes back, knight f2. It's a beautiful fork. Queen's attacked, rook's attacked. Queen might as well take a pawn. You simply take the rook, and even if the queen takes back, in this position, Mari is up a whole rook, completely winning. Okay? But how do you get to these winning positions? Remembering to trade down. Okay? So after the rook took the pawn, simply take the bishop and play for that fork. What Mari did instead is she retreated the bishop to f2. She's still better here, but she's letting Daniel hang around. That's an expression that comes from sports a lot, where you're winning by a couple of runs in baseball, but you don't add to your lead, and the other team just hangs around, and next thing you know, they hit a home run. I'm a Met fan, but I feel bad for the Yankees. They got really close, but I'm not here to talk about baseball, even though being a Met fan is really tough. So anyway, let's finish the game. So Daniel finally trades here. Knight takes f2, and I kind of stopped the class because this same fork is on the board, and it was time to go. But I hope you enjoyed the game and you learned something. So from the beginning, the center fork trick, keep an eye out for that. And don't forget, when you're up material, trading down is the way to get into a great ending. And another concept in this game was, let me actually show you this on the board, was here playing the move f4 in some lines, like opening this game up. It was here in this position. Remember we talked about this pawn giving black more space, and you see the difference between the location of the two kings. So in positions like this, don't be afraid to throw a pawn in the middle of the board, trying to open the game up. If they take straight away, you have ideas of checking with the rook. You can even play moves like, even knight to b5, putting all this pressure on the pawn. You're threatening c7. The rook's coming to e1, the bishop's coming out. You see what that little pawn break does for your game? All right, guys, I'll leave it at this. I will see you next week. Don't forget, we're in the same location. Okay, Grandmasters.